Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining season 2 of No One Knows What They're Doing. What is going on? What can I help you with? Tell me about what's going on in your life.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. So, the deal is that I am looking to leave a job that I've been at for a couple years now in the near future. I'm in sort of that holding pattern where, like, I know that I want to leave, but I obviously have not left yet. And I'm sort of, in between the busy things that come up here and there, I'm sort of taking those steps. But as much as I know that I want this, and I know that when the time comes and I find that right opportunity, I'll be so excited. There's this really, really strong sense that this, false closeness, that sort of quote unquote family, that dreaded work family dynamic, combined with just my knowledge of the way that a couple particular people gossip and talk here, has me living with this fear of sharing what is ultimately, happy for me news.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to picture how I can stay, neutral and calm and cool and collected when I'm breaking that news. When I know that there will probably be some fallout. And I think in a lot of parts of my life, I tend to prioritize keeping things cool and saving face. And this is just an instance where, like, I know this is coming and we're not there yet, and I just think it's going to be really hard. So curious to see what your tips or advice would be about standing my ground and staying composed when I am basically leaving a toxic environment.
Yeah, wow. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to be talking to you today, and I'm so proud of you for being able to say goodbye, to this environment. I think that that's an incredible thing. There's a few things that I want to pick apart here. First of all, you sound like a really put together, calm person. And so I think you're going to crush it no matter what, and you don't need my advice. But what I'm interested, you said standing your ground. What does that mean to you?
I've heard from some people that, like, uh people that I'm close with are like, oh well, when you tell them, just be neutral, be, don't over, you know divulge information, because that just makes it easier for them to say, well, what about this? And I know that when, by the time I walk into that room and we're having those conversations, my mind is made up, so there's only so much that can be done. But I almost don't trust myself to be like, this is what I want, when the people in front of me who I've known now for years are like, "Oh, but why? But what about this? What if we do this?" Like, I want to, I hope that I can walk into that room and be like, this has been nice, but I've decided that I want to do something else. But I'm so nervous about them pulling the, like, "Oh, but we're so close. Oh, but you're my work daughter," and all of these things that get thrown around over the years, unfortunately. So I, you know, would like to hear what you think about sort of showing up as your full self, your full excited self, and your full confident
Yeah.
self when you have
No,
this, like, kind of scary news to break that's ultimately positive.
absolutely. And so, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're afraid of this interpersonal few minutes that you're going to be in, where it's going to be a little portion of time where it's, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, where there are complicated emotions getting thrown around, and you don't have enough faith in yourself to be able to manage these complicated emotions. Are you afraid you're going to lose your temper? Are you afraid that you're going to disappoint them? Like, what's the fear you think here?
That I do think that's exactly that's exactly what's going on. I'm, like, boiling this whole thing down to a couple minutes that are going to be uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I definitely trust myself to keep my cool. I trust myself to be, uh, you know cautious and kind in a way. But I don't know if I'm gonna, like, fold under pressure. Like, if I want to be, kind and courteous but direct, and they start to, you know stir up harder emotions, I hope that I don't come off as regretful. I hope that I can find the fortitude to be like, no, this is, I hear that you're upset, but this is still what I want to do. And I'm so nervous that the certain level of closeness, like the at times closeness that we've had, is going to prevent me from being, as sure-footed as I will hopefully feel about this when the time comes. So yeah, I think I'm letting the anticipation of discomfort get in the way of just being sure.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing is you're prioritizing their feelings over your own. You have the right to set a boundary in the situation and just say, look, we're not family. This is my job and this is just professional. It's not personal. You've probably heard me say that before. It's not personal. This is not the first time somebody will have quit on them, and this is not the last time. This is what running a company is people quit and people hire. Like, that's just how it goes. And so I think like some practical advice for you is that, because I know what you're feeling. I'm a recovering people pleaser. You just don't want to be put in these awkward situations where you're making other people uncomfortable. Like, that's the number one priority. And getting 5 minutes of advice from somebody is not going to rewire your brain. So I think that something that would be really helpful for you is a mantra, like something that you can cling to in that moment. Like, it's not personal, it's just professional. Like, on a personal level, I still deeply respect y'all, and I really value my time here, and I learned so much from you. But in this time in my life, in my professional life, this is the next move that I need to make. And I haven't lost any respect for any of you. I would love to stay in touch. I'd love to keep the door open. It's something I also like to say when I'm leaving a job is, this isn't goodbye forever. This is just, I'm going to try out something new. And you never know, maybe I'll come crawling back to you someday. And all I'll accept is an open door. So keep that door open. Don't treat it like a breakup. It's just, I'm making a small pivot in my career. What do you think? So imagine like you're walking into that room with your boss or whoever it is, or getting on Zoom. Let's go through two scenarios. So let's go through worst case scenario. What do you think is like the absolute worst case scenario here?
Oh, good question, because in this particular dynamic, like, by the time I'm telling them, I absolutely will have already signed something. So it's like, this can only go so far. But I think worst case scenario for me would be that they I think like if they want more information than I am willing to give them, I will feel very, very cornered. And I do, while on one hand that feels like it isn't worst case scenario, I think for me in this sort of emotional protective state, that is of like, I'm in a corner. I feel like I can't say anymore. I don't want to end up in a boxing match, I think is how I would put that. I hope that when the time comes, it's easy, but that's probably my worst case scenario here, is that I feel like it's time to get louder than I want to be or say more than I want to say, and I feel cornered.
Got it. Okay, that's completely valid. Is your plan to break the news to one person in one meeting? Or you say boxing match, feeling cornered, that makes me assume that you're maybe breaking the news to multiple people at once?
I, in a way, have two bosses. I think it would probably go to my most direct boss first, and then my. It is an assumption, but my assumption would be that this individual would want to meet together with the other person I report to. So, in my worst case scenario, I do picture myself in an office with two other people.
But if I were you, it kind of sounds like that you should maybe go to the boss who's maybe more senior, or the boss who's maybe closer to you in a day to day, and confide in them and say, I've accepted a new job offer. I'm honestly a little anxious to be quitting this job because of the reaction that I'm going to get from the team members. I know that we're all very close, but I wanted to let you know personally and privately first, I'm navigating this a little cautiously, and enroll them in that conversation and say, I'm wondering if you could help me kind of like offline or offload this job as graciously as possible, because I really respect everybody who works here and I want to navigate this as professionally as possible. What's your advice for me? And kind of like pull them into your side of the boxing match. At the end of the day, their emotions are not your problem. Like, they're just not. So next, I would like to go through the best case scenario. What do you think is the ideal outcome of you quitting?
I guess the best case scenario is that the conversation is relatively fast, and we all agree that that it's not a matter of what does or doesn't make sense, or what we do or don't like, but that this is what's happening. So yeah, I think best case scenario would be that it's fast and positive, and that I walk out of the room feeling like, okay, I did that. That's done. Instead of like, oh shoot, this is so awkward.
Yeah, no, the main priority here is like your feelings. And I think it's so important for you to know that you're not doing anything weird. People quit all the time. And it's not your problem if they can't deal with that very well, because it sounds like you're doing everything on your end to do this professionally. It sounds to me like you're most afraid of the impact and kind of ripping off the Band-Aid, but I promise you, once it's ripped off, no matter what their reaction is, you're going to breathe a huge sigh of relief. Do what you need to do, have a mantra, meditate beforehand. It sounds like you're an incredibly regulated person, and that you're going to do great, moving forward. When is the date?
Oh, that is big time to be determined. I'm still at the point where like, okay, I'm getting everything's ready, watching your reels, taking in all the hints and tips and tricks I can as part of like the job hunt process. Yeah, I don't have a date yet, so at this point, I'm just being a worrywart about it.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like an over worrying aspect to it. I think something else that might really help you is having a few phrases in your back pocket. Like, for example, in that worst case scenario, you're like, I quit, and your boss is like, how can you leave us? We're like family. And just being like, I still see you, as a very close friend, and, I really respected our professional relationship. This is just something that I have to do and I have to try out. Just like have all these phrases in your back pocket. Something else that I really like to hear is when people are, they might say something kind of aggressive, like, how can you just like leave us hanging? And just saying, I'm so sorry that you see it that way. Like, I don't share that view. I see this as a professional move that, people make every single day. People move on to new jobs. But I'm really sorry that you see it that way, and I don't share that view. Just kind of like things that are gentle, but, you're still putting your foot down and saying, don't mess with me. So what do you think about that? You got some phrases that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think the one you started to say first, and I would be comfortable using the term mentor. Like, you guys have been mentors to me. This has been a wonderful place to work. I like that idea of sort of padding this with like, I don't mean any harm. And if this comes as any harm, or if it feels like any harm or malpractice, know that it certainly wasn't my intent. And just saying it out loud, but also I would say it at the time. Like I would hope that my tenure here, you know, shows you that I wouldn't have meant to do you any wrong or screw you over or leave you hanging. So yeah, I like that idea
Uh-huh.
of having those phrases prepared, because I'm confident I will use them.
Yeah. Okay, I have one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. What is that phrase that, your bosses or your coworkers that you're most afraid that they'll say to you that's really going to trigger you and that you're afraid that you won't be able to bite your tongue on?
I think the hardest thing for me to bat around would be, why didn't you tell us that you wanted to leave, or why didn't you tell us sooner?
Okay, Michelle, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us sooner? You should have given us a heads up. That was rude.
I would say, we always have a lot going on, and I feel like there's no perfect time to do this, but I'm facing the right opportunity, and I wish the best for you guys, and I fully intend to be supportive over the next 2 weeks, but this is what I need to do for me right now.
That was perfect. Like, it was perfect. No notes.
Thank you. I'm gonna write that down.
No notes. You're gonna do great. Like you really are. You have this new job. You're moving on to brighter and better futures. That doesn't mean that your experience there was all bad. I'm sure there was lots of good and bad things that you learned there, but you're moving on. And this is your last meeting to just kind of tie a bow on it. And it sounds like you know exactly what you're doing. You sound super, like I said, regulated and professional. You're doing every single thing right. And don't let them get in your head or make you think that you're doing anything wrong, because advice with Aaron is saying that you're doing everything right. So just tell them I said that.
Thank you. I needed that. I needed
For the
that.
record, I have a feeling that they are going to be very, very happy for you, and things are going to go a little bit better than you're expecting.
Thank you. I hope so. I will keep you posted. I appreciate your advice and your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
I designed a quiz that pairs you with your ideal career based off of your personality and lifestyle preferences. It's 30 questions. It's 100% free. Go over to advicewithaaron.com/quiz to take it today. And every week, I send out a handwritten email with a piece of motivational advice and a communication tip. So if you'd like to join over 200,000 readers, head over to hyperhelpful.com. You're doing great. I'm proud of you. And remember, you got this.